Welcome to the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, hosted by me, yours truly, Jeffrey Bellomo, where we discuss all things estate planning and elder law, and, well, hey, anything else we want to talk about. And on this podcast, I have my dear friend Meg Motter joining us, who is the Life Care Planning Coordinator at Bellomo and Associates, a licensed social worker, and a dear friend of mine, and I am really excited about this podcast. Meg, how you doing?
I am doing great, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm very excited about this one. This podcast has been a long time coming. So
it has indeed.
Yeah, we have had a lot of reschedules and cancellations, and so I've been very excited about this for months. Actually, back to February when we were at the Pro Bowl together, which I imagine we'll probably talk about on this podcast. But we'll see what comes up, right? So, just a quick disclaimer. A quick reminder for our listeners, please do not take advice that you get on this show or any other radio show for that matter as constituting legal advice. If you are looking for legal advice about your specific situation, please contact a lawyer that is licensed in the state that you are living in and that actually practices and does the area of law that you are looking for. If you are in Pennsylvania and you're looking for an attorney to assist with estate planning and elder law or life care planning, we would be honored and humbled to be able to assist you and your family. And to that end, we offer free educational workshops. We have educational workshops in pre-planning, crisis planning, special needs planning, life care planning, as well as administration for both trust and probate administration. So if you need education, we can provide it for you. We've got your back on that. Please reach out to us at 717-845-5390 or on the web at www.bellomoassociates.com. All of our upcoming dates for our workshops are on the website, and certainly one of our team members would be able to assist you with those dates and to get you registered as well. So now on to the content of the podcast. Meg, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
All right. Well, as I say in the workshop, I was nicknamed Mom in high school. That's in the yearbook. You can look at the Falston High School yearbook, circa 1982, and it says my nickname is Mom. So I've been kind of a person that helps forever. It's in the blood. And decided about social work when I was 16 years old, and I drove my grandmother to South Carolina and met my great uncle Wayne, who had had a stroke and was nonverbal, but I just fell in love with him. So he and I had this great bond, and I just knew then that seniors, elderly were my jam. That said, I also kind of like teenagers and young adults, so I kind of work both ends of the spectrum, but career-wise, elderly.
Very cool.
Graduated from Western Maryland College, not to be confused with McDaniel. I'm hardcore Western Maryland is the name. And then got my graduate degree at the University of Kansas School of Social Welfare in clinical social work. Spent 29 years working for the state of Maryland, then did Carroll Hospice in Maryland, and then, drum roll please, joined the Bellomo team.
Yes.
That was in April 2021, so almost 3 years ago.
Yep, I was going to ask. I didn't know the exact date, actually. I would have been off by a few months, so.
Yep, almost 3.
Very good. And to a layperson, if you're talking to them on the streets, just one of our listeners, what do you do for Bellomo and Associates? What's your role? How do you help?
Okay. Well, life care planning is a model that's a national model that's been around for probably 20 years, not well known in a lot of elder law firms. And essentially, a life care planning clinician is a social worker or a nurse, and even in some cases, a non-licensed person. It could just be someone that's devoted their career working with seniors. And a person that would hire our law firm for my services would be hiring for a 1-year contract. And it is anything and everything. It is very unique to the family, the individual. I've had clients who have hired because they are living at home, they are healthy and well, they want to stay there, and they kind of proactively hire me to kind of be on their team so that if something happens, if they end up in the hospital, they can call and I can kind of get in there and be supportive and be an advocate. And I've had families that have hired where things are really, really not good, and I kind of jump in and help them figure out what services the person might need, or assess, can the person even remain at home? So it is anything and everything. I have pulled blueberry bushes from the backyard after my client fell. This week I helped a client move from home to an assisted living facility with her son, and spent the day with them, and that was about 4 months getting to the point where she was ready to make this move. And now I'll go back tomorrow and check in on her and see how she's doing, and next week and the week after. So it really varies, but that's the fun of it. I can do all sorts of things.
Wow. Well, one fun fact, my wife got her master's degree from Western Maryland. I don't know if you knew the connection there.
I don't think I knew that.
Yes, and she also is a Western Maryland fan. That is her alma mater. Please don't say anything differently. So that's cool. And the one thing I heard you say that kind of stuck out to me is the word advocate. When I'm describing what you do for people, I say, there is not a better person in this world that you want on your side or on your team to be a better advocate for you than Meg Motter. And I've known that for years, but having seen you in action, I actually received a text message a few months ago from, I believe it was one of my friends in the hospice area, who said, wow, you have a gem. Meg is an incredible human, and she is a real advocate for your clients. Maybe doesn't always agree with me, but she will always advocate for your clients, and that's what you need. So I thought that was a really nice sort of compliment, and also acknowledging we don't always agree, but that's okay, right? Everybody needs to have an advocate. So I don't think you could have used a better word, was all I wanted to say with that story.
Yeah, that when I first started with you, I remember texting you, and Jennah wanted to know what's her title going to be, and you immediately shot back Client Care Advocate.
Yep.
And I loved that because of the advocacy. And you've heard me say this, since the pandemic, nothing could be more critical than that role of advocacy. It's just a big deal anymore in healthcare. I just was with my mom in the emergency room last weekend. She's 89. And I'll tell you what, every time I'm in that situation, I'm reminded of, they do a great job, but just to have somebody there to say, what's that med you're giving? And when did you say we'd get this test? And just kind of have the second set of ears, and really somebody that is pushing to make sure everybody's on the same page. It's really, really important.
Well, and even if you have a family member who can be an advocate, they aren't going to understand the lingo. They're not going to understand the terminology. I mean, you could be a bulldog all you want, but if you're not speaking the right language, you're just going to come across as abrasive and as needy but someone who can speak the language and actually communicate the right words and who's not necessarily emotionally involved, although I know that you are a serious advocate and do sometimes get emotionally involved.
I definitely get emotionally involved. I love my people.
I know you do. And, but maybe not as much as a son would or a daughter would. I know you do. I do. You're definitely out for the client. There is no doubt. Nobody would argue otherwise. But I definitely think that it's still a professional emotional versus, sometimes when it's mom or dad, you can be emotional and not be professional. And crossing lines isn't usually a good thing when you're in the healthcare industry. So,
it's a lot easier to be objective when you're not family. And I hear from families, that's one of the things they appreciate about me. I'm not going to necessarily say, you're right, let's do it that way. I'm going to say, I hear you, but here's what I think we ought to consider. And I get often people saying, I know you're going to be honest with me, and that's for sure. Give them my thoughts on what's best.
I know, especially a couple of years ago, 3 years ago when you came on board, people were asking, Jeff, what was the reason, why you pulled the trigger? and I have a couple comments. One is I had wanted to work with you for years and just couldn't figure out the right timing and the right place and the right situation. So that was part of it, right? But also, and maybe more importantly, I always hated the questions: is mom safe at home? What could we do to the home? Is mom, ready for the next level? Is assisted enough? Does she need the memory care unit? Does she need skilled care? How should we be advocating for mom? And my answer always was, I have no idea. Like, I'm a lawyer and I know how to do documents. I know how to plan for asset protection. I know how to do very specific things, but those are not things that I knew how to do. And I felt inadequate, right? Because the answer was, I don't know. And I don't know that I'm supposed to know either, but you still feel like you're not providing a service to a client when you always are saying, I don't know. And I finally got to a point was, I'm tired of saying, I don't know. I want to be able to say, here, talk to Meg. She will know. So that's kind of the long story about, from my perspective, that all came about. So what about from your perspective?
I'm so glad you asked.
How did we meet? How did we end up at Bellomo and Associates?
Well, once upon a time, a little girl, not little, she was a teenager, I guess, Jennah Motter. She's now Jennah Gerhardt, and the officiant at her wedding happened to be Jeffrey Bellomo. Jennah moved from a ballet studio in Hanover, where we were, to York, to Greater York, and she began teaching a little girl named Deanna, who's not a little girl anymore. She is a teenager. And Deanna's daddy sort of recruited Jennah, that would be you, to the law firm. So now Jennah, who's my daughter, is, I think the official title is Chief Operating Officer. And so I've just been bugging you for years, just kind of teasing and saying, when are you going to hire me? When are you going to hire me? And I think at that point, you probably didn't even really know, what would a social worker do for my law firm?
I had no idea.
And now I think probably everybody on the team would say, how would we not have an elder law firm without a social worker or a clinician of some sort to sort of help people emotionally and then navigating all the systems? So it worked out. I teased you a long time, and we had many good conversations about things like asset protection and Medicaid and so forth. And right timing, it was just perfect. So that's my side of the story. I concur completely. On the podcast with Jennah, we were talking a little bit about. I asked her the same question, and it's funny when she told the story about how I walked out of dance class one night teaching Jeff's daughter, Deanna, and Jeff came up to me and said, have you ever thought about working at a law firm before? And she said, my response was, Jeff, I would clean your toilets if you wanted me to. But no, I never thought about working at a law firm. It was just so funny hearing that, because it was in that moment that I realized that's how it all started. I mean, yes, the relationship was before because she was teaching Deanna. And I always tell people, one of the things that we do a lot at Bellomo is hire people that we know, hire people that we've had relationships with, that we've worked with, because people who know me or know the firm believe in the mission, believe in the person, believe in what we're doing. And it's very hard to hire somebody from the outside to truly understand what it is that we're trying to do and the why behind the firm and the why behind what it is that we do. And so it's always nice having people that can say, well, look, I knew him for 5 years and he was a wonderful human in no context other than just relationship at a dance studio. So that was kind of cool. I really enjoyed that. But on to sort of for you and I, one of the favorite memories that I have is definitely the Pro Bowl. So last year we were able to attend. So Jennah was a Baltimore Ravens cheerleader, and she made the Pro Bowl last year. So just this year, I mean, as far as the calendar year, February of 23, we were out in Las Vegas. Wow, yeah, I had a moment there. Enough you didn't even know where we were.
Woo, yeah, and we got to watch the Pro Bowl, but spend a few days together, and it was just awesome. Like just spending that time personally and getting to know you on a more personal level. And I certainly always thought I did, but it is nice when you're together with someone for several days in a row, and that was a lot of fun.
It was tons of fun. Can't say I'm a Vegas person, but that trip was awesome. And we went to a flag football tournament to see Jennah with the cheerleaders, and that was neat. Who goes to a flag football tournament when they're in Vegas? And we went to a gospel concert too.
Yes, I
Outdoor
forgot.
gospel concert.
That was so fun.
So we did lots of things that weren't your typical Vegas things.
Yeah. My wife asked when we got home, what would be your favorite memory of that trip? And I said, it was standing next to Meg, watching her on the flag football field, watching Jennah talk to a bunch of young players. And I don't even know why I'm getting emotional, but just watching you watch her was so cool. I mean, what an experience for me.
Yeah, I think that's probably the thing I'm most proud of is how she interacted with fans, especially the little kids. The power of mentoring and being an adult that nurtures young people that was a plus to watch that. I didn't care about the football games, but
Yeah, I didn't either, frankly. It was
Steelers you would have.
yeah, and but again, I was there more for her and
Yes.
for the honor that she was awarded and to be there, and it was really cool. I mean, it was just such a neat experience to be a part of it. It was great. Her husband Devin was with us. Now I think they might have been engaged at that time, but
Right.
it was just so much fun to just be there and have that experience with her and with you and having you watch her and the proud mom and you did a heck of a job with all three of your kids, though. I will say that.
Thank you. I can't take all credit. I will give credit to the Lord, and I will give credit to lots of people like Jeff Bellomo that have helped me raise my people. So,
Yeah. Well, I certainly wasn't there for the raising part, but
well, you've done your share. I got emotional my first week at work when I watched her. I texted my husband the
Yep.
first day and said, "It's pretty amazing to watch our daughter shine." And I've said to you, I just am incredibly grateful for all you've done for her. And now, my younger daughter is also a Bellomo employee. So.
she is. She is. Yes. Yes. It's so nice seeing her as well. And I probably knew Julianne the least of the three. But now that's changing. And I'm
Yes.
certainly having the opportunity to get to know. But again, another incredible human being. And you went 3 for 3.
I did. I have good kids.
Yeah.
I'm keeping them.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. And I know for a couple years here, I've always been busting on your son Jordan, who has like kind of a marketing background. When you're ready, you let us know. So
He is pretty steeped in the high school gymnastics world.
Yes.
So I think we've got a while. Maybe when his back gives out on him and he can no longer spot gymnasts, we might have a shot. But
well, I hope that never happens. I hope
so
I
too.
hope he's
He
able
loves
to.
his job.
He does.
He is loved. He's an incredible coach.
He is so good at it too. I mean, just watching some of the clips and the videos that I've seen, and similar to the way I watch Jennah taking care of the girls dancing and the
Yes.
dancers and stuff. It's a
Very
very
similar
similar
vibe.
thing. Yeah, very very similar. So one of my other favorite memories that you and I got to share together was we had one of our clients who was living in a home that the client didn't feel safe in. And I will never forget the text message that I received from you. Do you want to share a little bit about that? That was a heck of an experience for us.
Oh my goodness. We have a lovely lady who came to you, met with you, and we just didn't even really know what to do for her. But you handed her off to me. We ended up realizing she's just not feeling safe where she's living. And it wasn't a physical safety issue. It was more of an emotional thing. So she didn't hire us, but we just decided we're going to help this lady. The public system services was not going to become involved, although we tried, and we just decided we're going to do the right thing. So I texted you and said, can you go pick her up with her suitcases and take her to a hotel? And by the way, there's a dog that barks a lot, and it's a pretty big dog. So you graciously went and picked her up, and we put her up in a hotel for 3 days, I think. And then Jennah and I moved her into an assisted living, and we've continued to be involved with her and help her. And she's a delight, and I am a better human knowing her. So she's incredible, and I love to tell the story. Well, even our attorney, Jeff Bellomo, provided chauffeur service and door-to-door transportation for a lady with 2 suitcases.
I will never forget walking out of a meeting, seeing a text pop up from you, and I read it 3 times, and I was like, I think she's asking the team if anyone can go and pick her up. I mean, you weren't even specifically asking me to do it.
That's true. You're probably right.
Yeah, you sent it to a bunch of us, but unfortunately that day, everybody was tied up. And I knew it. Now, I don't remember why now. I don't have a recollection of what was going on that day, but I looked at my calendar and I was like, okay, I'm the only one who's free. Like, there is nobody else who can do this. And I just hopped in my car.
Yep.
And I remember texting my wife saying, I don't know what I'm walking into. Track me, keep an eye on where I am, and I'll text you when I leave the car, and I'll text you when I get back in the car. And, we share our location with each other, so I knew that she would know where I was. And I even texted you as I was walking in, and it turned out completely fine. I mean, but, you don't know what you're walking into. You have no idea. And it worked out great. It was just a neat experience. But again, the whole advocacy part, you weren't working with her formally. We weren't, she wasn't technically a client. We weren't being paid, and it didn't matter. You said, we got to help her. We're not going to let something happen to someone, and we have the ability to assist, as far as we can. Mm-hmm. And certainly, I think taking her out of that situation was probably the best thing for her. Absolutely. And now she seems to be flourishing, at least from the outside world, from the little bit that I hear from you about what's occurring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in my defense, I had picked her up at that house to take her to the bank, maybe the week before. So I was pretty sure you were safe.
Yes. No, understood.
I'm not going to send you to the wolves. So if Whitney watches this, I got your husband's back.
Yeah.
Send him in.
No.
With such a risk. But it did feel odd because there was some animosity and some friction between the homeowners and our client, but it worked out beautifully.
Yeah, it did. And in that moment, as I was driving, I remember thinking to myself, well, look, I'm not a small human, and at least if there is something, I can definitely get her out of there, and we can just leave. And if we leave her bags, we leave her bags. But I thought to myself, I'm glad this is me. Like, as much as we have some wonderful team members, and I'm sure every one of them would have done it, but it also was a little comforting for me to know, all right, I'm here, I can get her out of there if I need to, and just hightail it out of Dodge if we need to, but completely fine, nothing was wrong. It worked out very well.
Yes, it did.
So you did mention 2 suitcases, but you did forget the 3 or 4 boxes of food and jugs of water, and it was a fun little experience. I remember her walking out, and then having the family member who was there continually bringing stuff out to the porch. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't know if it's going to fit in my Jeep.
Better in your Jeep than my Hyundai.
100%. I don't know that it would have. I mean, it would have been packed. Your back seat and your trunk would have been absolutely full. It was great. It worked out very well. But that's just a great testament to you. It didn't matter. You said, I'm going to help this lady, and we're going to take care of her. And you still are. I mean, you're still in her life, and you're still there. The one thing I did want to make sure that I got to mention today, as a general rule, I mean, there are exceptions to rules, but as a general rule, you're not acting as a power of attorney for people. You're more there to assist them, to answer questions, to advocate, to potentially drive, in a case where that's a situation that arises. But I did want to say that that's something that I've been being asked in the community. And I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, or.
Yeah, I am power of attorney for one person, and it happens to be the lady that we've just talked about. And what happened was, this is more of a testimony to get your power of attorney and find somebody. Her family's overseas and doesn't wish to be involved, sadly. She fell. She fractured a hip.
Yeah.
The surgeon called me 8 o'clock at night to authorize the surgery. I couldn't authorize the surgery. I just am her friend. So he deferred to the next morning, called me back. I said, I'm not her power of attorney. I still can't do it. Go down and talk to her, because her baseline is she's very alert, oriented, has capacity. Thankfully, she did. She was able to say, yes, I needed and want the surgery. And then the next week, we drafted power of attorney documents for her, and I am her power of attorney, and Jennah, my daughter, our law firm leader, is second. That's the exception. Much more typically,
Right.
we are working with the family and their power of attorney to get services. But in this case, I don't know. She captured my heart the first day I met her. So, I mean, they all do. But for her, she really has no one.
Yeah.
And she wanted me, and I'm happy to oblige. So,
Yeah. And I don't know what made me think of this. Something you just said triggered me. I believe in the last few days that I received a text message from you saying, make sure on the podcast that you ask me about being in the hospital with my mother. No, I have no idea what you're about to say, but there's your reminder.
Okay. Saturday, I was in the emergency room in room 27 with my mom. I had gone over to relieve my sister. I get a phone call from the wife of a couple that I work with saying, my husband went to the emergency room, a neighbor took him 6 hours ago, and I've heard nothing. And how can you help? This was a Saturday. I mean, I usually answer, especially if it's a client, because they don't usually call me unless there's something going on.
Right.
So I called her back and said, what hospital is she in?
Yep.
Wellspan, York Hospital. I said, Mrs. So-and-so, you are not going to believe this. Right now, I am in that hospital in the emergency room with my mom. So I went out to the front desk and said, I'd like to visit Mr. So-and-so. What room is he in? 31, literally 2 doors down from my mom.
Wow.
So I walked back, stuck my head in, said, Mom, I'll be back in a minute. Went down 2 doors, knocked and said, hi. And he was just being discharged. And I said, how about I drive you home? So an incredible, it just was, I'd like to brag that I'm there at the hospital when you need me.
Yeah.
But I'm not. But I'll tell you what, a blessing to be able to do that. But his relief, and then we called his wife and her relief, and we all three just were like,
Wow.
mind blown about how that we couldn't have orchestrated that if we'd have tried.
No, the hair of my arm is standing up. That is crazy.
It was an incredible moment. So Julianne came to sit with my mom while I drove my client home and get him tucked in at home. And then I came back to the ER, and all is well with the world.
Wow. Well,
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, that's incredible. I just heard from a team member whose mother is in a local nursing home, and she was there visiting, and the suite mate or roommate or whatever you call that in the nursing home situation, the mother was telling the roommate about her daughter working at Bellomo and Associates, and I'm a client of Bellomo. I work with Bellomo, and it was just a small world. It is such a small
Absolutely.
world, particularly in the local area here, York, Lancaster, Adams County. I mean, it's certainly everybody seems to know everybody, but it was just a coincidence there, the same way as yours happened to be in the hospital. And I hope you're not in the hospital again with a family member. I hope we
No.
never have that experience again, but it's crazy how that worked out.
Yeah. Now, I didn't mention, the funniest part about it is I grabbed one of my Bellomo jackets and my name tag, because I thought if I get out of the hospital in time, I'm going to go across the street to Rest Haven to visit my client that lives there.
Oh!
And I didn't get out of the hospital on time, but as soon as the wife called me, I was able to put my jacket on, put my name tag on, so I was suddenly official and no longer the daughter of a ER patient.
Whoa.
I was now the client care advocate for Mr. So-and-so.
Wow, that is fascinating. I did not know any of that,
Yep.
There is a bit of a risk when you're live on a podcast asking somebody about something that you have no idea. But I knew, yes, but I knew it would be a wonderful story. You wouldn't have asked, so that's phenomenal. So, as I suspected completely, the time has flown by, and I had no doubt that it would. And here we are at the end of the podcast today. I would like to thank you very much, Meg, the client care advocate at Bellomo and Associates, for joining us. I'd like to thank the listeners for being here with us today on the Red Wagon Estate Planning and Elder Law Show, where we discuss all things estate planning and elder law. And today was definitely an estate planning and elder law topic, which we call life care planning. So I'd like to thank you. We look forward to seeing you. If you would like any more information about life care planning at Bellomo and Associates, please give us a call at 717-845-5390 or check us out on the web at www.bellomoassociates.com, and you will be able to learn more information about life care planning and also a schedule of our upcoming complimentary workshops to be able to learn more about what life care planning is and more about what is Bellomo and Associates and what we do in the community. So Meg, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being here. Thank you to my listeners. And until next time, we'll see you real soon.